not have enough resources in the state of Oregon to meet all of the need.
And how's TriMet handling the coronavirus outbreak? We got our hands on some recordings that show drivers concerned.
Any suggestion that we make to them is like pouring water out of a glass because they don't listen.
And what happens when you order Portlanders to stay inside during a pandemic? About what you'd expect. Here's the story. All right. Another week down. Man, I know what you're thinking. Things sure have changed since last Friday. You're right. Hi, I'm Dan Haggerty. This is The Story. I know a lot of people may be watching after working from home. Maybe some of you aren't working at all right now. And I know the days kind of feel like they're all blending together, but it is, in fact, Friday. We got a weekend ahead of us. So until then, we'd love if you spend the next half hour hanging out with us here, asking questions using the hashtag #HeyDan. We read through all of them. We answer as many as we can. And with that in mind, I want to talk about bubbles again. You know, not like blowing bubbles or anything, but how we're all kind of stuck in bubbles these days, going through this crazy time together while never being more literally apart from each other. I shared a story from my personal bubble last week about a woman at my dry cleaner and her husband who got laid off from his restaurant job. A little update, actually, I found out that she got laid off too, and the dry cleaning business may not survive this. A few of you shared your bubbles with us, and I wanted to read from one from my Facebook inbox from Alex Cabrera. It's our 10-year anniversary on Friday. We already had to cancel our trip to Southeast Asia for early April, and now I can't even take her out to a nice, fine dinner evening. So I might have to bring the candlelight dinner to home. It would be awesome to have a resource of our great PDX restaurants that are creating dinner meal preps for takeout and finishing at home. That's actually a really smart idea. I don't know if anybody does that. Maybe some people should start, but that sounds awesome. I will remind you, though, our restaurants need as much support as we can give them right now. And remember, a lot of them still offer takeout or delivery. Most of them tell you what they offer right there on their website, so check it out. In fact, a man named Kevin Rhea started this big viral movement to get people to order out, dine in today. So if you're able to, maybe order dinner from a local restaurant tonight. Give them a little boost. Portland's got plenty of them. Maybe even order dessert. If you got a couple extra bucks to spare, don't forget to tip the delivery driver. All right, TriMet is the focus of tonight's big story. Now, I remember when we first started learning about how fast this virus spread, we got a ton of questions from you guys about how safe it would be to ride TriMet. And TriMet put out some really good info. They've been pushing out a bunch of updates, too, like now they're not accepting cash. And there's this whole drop-down menu where they explain how they're wiping down all the surfaces and trying to keep their drivers safe. But some of those drivers still worry that TriMet isn't actually doing enough to keep them or their passengers safe. Kyla Boshi investigated and found some dispatch recordings that give us a pretty rare look from the driver's seat.
Audio recordings obtained by KGW help illustrate the confusion at TriMet as drivers struggle to deal with instances of overcrowded buses and possible contamination.
As I was pulling up, he spit all over his hands and just started touching every single part of the bus.
In one case, dispatch recordings suggest a TriMet bus driver doesn't have proper safety or sanitation supplies available on board.
And you wouldn't happen to have any wipes or sanitizing stuff in your pouch or anything there? Unfortunately, I don't have any wipes left.
In the recording, dispatchers asked the driver to return to the garage. But there's clear confusion about how the incident should be handled and how the driver, who was possibly contaminated, should clean off.
I don't know. I'm not OSHA. I'm not a hazmat team. I don't know. I was going to call the fire department here in a minute. Well, that's might be a ultimate solution there.
By the way, that's not the first.
Shirley Block, president of ATU 757, the union representing TriMet drivers and operators, said the agency has been slow to respond to safety concerns surrounding the coronavirus outbreak.
Any suggestion that we make to them is like pouring water out of a glass because they don't listen.
When asked about safety protocol, TriMet provided a 3-page memo marked draft, which outlined procedures for dealing with COVID-19 contamination on a bus. But as for a contaminated driver, the agency said it doesn't have a written policy yet, only verbal. TriMet claims it has enhanced bus cleaning procedures, sanitizing vehicles at least once, if not more, each day.
They claim they have a plan now, but for weeks we have been trying to get them to get a plan in place.
Another concern, overcrowded trains and buses, as revealed in dispatch recordings.
At one moment I had every seat on my bus had somebody in it. Yeah, I mean, the 6 feet is a suggestion. That's the ideal to prevent the virus from being transmitted. Can't always meet that ideal. If you feel it's getting unsafe, just make a choice.
To promote 6 feet of social distancing, TriMet put up these signs, and the agency is no longer taking cash on buses. We continue to look at ways to encourage social distancing, wrote TriMet spokesperson Roberta Alstead in an email to KGW. TriMet drivers suggest they're on their own to enforce social distancing among passengers while still maintaining their routes and service on time. TriMet drivers suggest getting more buses on the road would help. Greater frequency means fewer crowds, allowing people to spread out. Again, social distancing. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
Yesterday on the story, we dug into some of your questions about that $2.2 trillion government stimulus bill that was just signed into law today. We focused on the $1,200 in cash that most Americans are going to get. And today we're going to be focusing on a different area, so we're kind of chipping away at this 800-page monster of a bill in a way that will actually hopefully make sense. So let's look at how the bill helps people who lost their jobs. But first, I do want to establish just how bad this unemployment situation is right now. And honestly, there might not be a better day to do it, because check out the front pages of the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, both showing the extreme spike in unemployment claims across America. We learned more than 3 million people filed for benefits just last week. That's the most number of Americans filing for benefits at one time since the government started tracking this stuff back in 1967. Let's just look at Oregon now. 2 weeks ago, Oregonians filed nearly 5,000 unemployment claims. Last week, that number jumped 1,500% to more than 76,000 people out of work, most in the leisure and hospitality jobs. Now, to make matters worse, the spike caused the state's unemployment system to really get bogged down. We got this email from Brianna Marshall. She's a 26-year-old mom. She worked at Great Clips. She lost her job because of the coronavirus. She says, "I've called the unemployment office for a week straight and I can't get through to anyone. All I can do is hang up and call back. I've called over 300 times." Brianna's story is frustrating and is probably very relatable to a lot of you watching right now. Problem is, even if Brianna and everyone else and all of you were all able to get through, there still wouldn't be enough money to go around, as Governor Brown emphasized 3 separate times.
I have been very, very clear that we will not have enough resources in the state of Oregon to meet all of the need that is in our communities across the state.
Last week, Governor Brown then said that we had the second best unemployment reserve in the country at $5 billion, but that it still wouldn't be enough, and it isn't. Okay, so we've kind of diagnosed the problem. But let's talk about some of the ways this stimulus bill is supposed to help. Now, first of all, it covers more people. So if you're unemployed, underemployed, or you cannot work because of the coronavirus, you probably qualify. Secondly, you will receive more unemployment. You'll get money from the state, and then the feds will chip in an additional $600 to get you as close to your regular paycheck as possible. Thirdly, it will last longer. The stimulus adds 13 weeks to your unemployment. Oregon offers up to 26 weeks of unemployment, so you could land total as much as 39 weeks or nearly 10 months of unemployment. Big caveat to tell you about, though, that extra $600, that only lasts up to July 31st. So your benefits may continue past that, but that extra money will not. These benefits also apply to gig workers and freelancers, independent contractors, and part-time workers. Now, look, I don't pretend you guys watch the story every single night, though I'd like you to. But here's a quick little refresher on those $1,200 government checks. You should see the money in about 3 weeks. You probably won't see an actual check, assuming that the IRS has your bank info on file. That money will drop directly into your account. You'll get a letter from the IRS about a week beforehand. Now, I know that was a lot. It was a lot of numbers. You might not have a DVR to rewind and go back and watch it again. Don't worry, because we're going to put this entire segment up on YouTube right now so that you can go back and watch it again to see if you missed something. Now, there's a new tool that we think is really worth your time, and maybe to help give you some peace of mind going into the weekend. It's a quiz that the CDC put together with Apple. Apple is in the people who make your iPhone. It's a COVID-19 screening tool. You just go to apple.com/COVID-19 and you answer some pretty easy questions like, how old are you? Do you have a fever or a sore throat? Have you traveled internationally recently? And at the end of it, it tells you what you should do based on your answer. Either stay at home or social distance or call a doctor. I looked through it today. They don't really ask for any private information, nothing like that. The questions are all very general. It's super easy. You can check it out right now at apple.com/COVID-19. We really think it's worth your time. Wait, so the president can just order a private business to change course and start making ventilators? Yeah, he can, and he did. And we're going to tell you how we got here. And how's about some curbside ganj?
We're helping people to deal with all of the weight that we're all dealing with right now.
How Portland pot shops have managed to stay open and extremely busy, I might add, while other businesses have been forced to shut down. And in other news, why the ACT and SAT are now optional to get into Oregon public universities. When the story continues.
All right, it's time for the best part of the show where we answer viewer questions. So this person wants to know, hey Dan, the tags on my car will expire in April of 2020. With the shelter in place and the DMV only handling commercial DMV issues, is there anything being done in case DEQ has not reopened before the end of April to protect those that are not able to renew their tags without the DEQ test first? This is from Alexander. Alexander, that is a great question. So according to the state, you don't have to worry about this. So until the emergency is over, Oregon law enforcement agencies and associations have agreed to exercise flexibility and discretion when reviewing expired driver's licenses, ID cards, and vehicle registrations during this time of public health emergency. You know, the grace period is definitely important for people like Alexander, Oregonians in the Portland metro region, the Medford area, whose vehicles must be inspected by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality before renewing their vehicle registration. DEQ has suspended vehicle emissions testing, so these people can't renew their vehicle registrations. So bottom line here, Alexander, you don't have to worry about your tags at this moment. Please keep sending in your questions using the hashtag HeyDan. We do our very best to answer them. All right, time to answer another viewer question. This person asks, is it true that Children's and Sisters hospitals are considering not allowing companions in the delivery rooms? This is against the World Health Organization recommendation, and it's causing a lot of stress among pregnant women. Sincerely, Amy Housley. Of course, that would be so stressful. It's already such a stressful time. So look, we checked with area hospitals. The good news here, all of them are still allowing a partner to join the birthing process, but only one visitor per patient is allowed at most hospitals. That is great news for Amy. All of you, thank you so much for sending in these questions. Use the hashtag HeyDan. We do our best to answer them.
And keep those questions coming using the hashtag HeyDan. You can also send us an email or send me a DM on Facebook. We read pretty much everything we get, so keep them on coming. Including this email here from Jamie Owens, emailed in the story at kgw.com and asked, why haven't we heard anything about Mexico as far as COVID-19? They're our closest neighbors to the south. Well, we've been so focused on Oregon and Washington and the rest of the country that I think we forget a little bit to talk about our neighboring countries. In a press conference yesterday, Mexico's Ministry of Health confirmed 585 cases and 8 deaths. But in the country of 130 million people, Mexico has only tested about 5,000, even a little less than that. The mayor of Mexico City, which is home to 9 million people, closed bars and gyms and movie theaters, but restaurants and street vendors have stayed open. And Mexican President Lopez Obrador is taking some heat right now because people think he might be downplaying the dangers here. Earlier this week, he encouraged people to go out to dinner, to spend money. Here's a clip from Al Jazeera.
If you can, take your family to the restaurants, to eateries, because it strengthens our families and our economy.
He's also been holding rallies where he's been hugging and kissing supporters in the street. The Mexican government has authorized some help for small businesses and people living on social programs, but nothing even close to the stimulus package we're seeing here in the United States. Now, we've been telling you all week that one of the big problems really facing us here right now is a lack of medical supplies, especially ventilators. People who get hospitalized with severe coronavirus cases, they need those to breathe. So the president is using the Defense Production Act to get General Motors to make more for us. So how exactly does that even work? Let's break it down.
You've probably been hearing about the Defense Production Act a lot that President Trump just invoked. So what is it, and how did we get here? Let's crack open the history books for a minute. During World War II, FDR signed the War Powers Act of 1941, right after the attack on Pearl Harbor. It gave the executive branch a lot of power, including forcing industries to make weapons and other things for the war. But a lot of that power went away after World War II. When the Korean War broke out, the Truman administration decided they needed something like that again, so they came up with the Defense Production Act of 1950. Basically, it lets the president force businesses to make products that are, as the act puts it, deemed necessary or appropriate to promote the national defense. Okay, this sounds a lot like military stuff though, right? So why is everyone talking about it now? Well, the act has been used off and on throughout history, and not just during wars. President Obama used it to respond to Chinese cyber spying, and President Trump actually used it in 2017 to create technology for stuff in the space industry, like satellites. So now, under the Act, he has the power to force companies to make critical medical equipment like ventilators and PPE, which is what he's doing now, to compel General Motors to manufacture ventilators. And that's how we got here.
Obviously, there's a lot of stuff closed right now, so it kind of feels like there's not much to do this weekend. You can't go out to eat, you can't go see a movie, you can't go to a bar, but you can, if you're so inclined, buy some pot. And a lot of people in Oregon are doing that right now.
We've been having 420 every day for the last 2 weeks.
I guess that's one way to put it. The state gave us some numbers. For the first half of this month, dispensaries saw a 25 to 30% increase in sales compared to the same time last year. So you might be thinking, wait, why can pot shops stay open right now? Are they considered an essential business? Well, they say yes. They told the governor that many people rely on them for medical needs, and other people rely on them to get products that are safe and have been tested. And if you look at Oregon's stay-home order, dispensaries are not listed as businesses that need to close, so they've kept operating. But there have been a couple of changes. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission is temporarily letting people pick up their pot at the curb as long as they're within 150 feet of the store. Some dispensaries let you order online, and others actually are delivering. But the OLCC also has a warning basically saying, don't take advantage of these new changes or we won't allow you to do this anymore. All right, let's take a little break from all this coronavirus coverage and get to some of the headlines that might have slipped through the cracks in a segment we call In Other News.
In other news, Oregon State Police shot and killed a driver on I-5 near Salem during a traffic stop. It happened just before midnight south of the city. Troopers say they got a complaint about a driver and pulled him over. They're not saying what led up to the shooting, only that shots were fired and the driver was killed. He's been identified as 51-year-old William Floyd. He was the only person in the car. No troopers were hurt. The troopers involved are now on paid leave, which is standard practice.
A Coffee Creek prison employee was taken to the hospital after opening an envelope with an unknown powdery substance in the mailroom. 7 employees were working in the mailroom when it happened this morning. The administration building was evacuated. Hazmat teams and the FBI are investigating what was inside that envelope. This is the 3rd time this has happened in the past few months. Prison mailroom employees open and examine each piece of mail to keep drugs and other things out of the prison. All public universities in Oregon will no longer require SAT or ACT scores from first-year applicants starting in fall 2021. Students will still have the option to submit a score when they apply. Schools made the change after research found that standardized test scores don't accurately predict a student's success in college. And that's in other news.
Hey, have we mentioned that it is Friday, finally? So we're going to end the week on a hopeful note when we finish the story next.
All right, time for another viewer question. This person says, hey Dan, can I go to my vacation home on the coast during the stay-at-home order? Yes, nothing in Governor Brown's stay-at-home order prevents you from going to a home you own. Although we have to point out that a lot of mayors, almost I think every mayor along the coast, they have asked people to please stay at home. Thank you so much for sending in your questions all week. We do our very best to answer them. Use the hashtag HeyDan.
Wow, it's official. We did it. We made it through the week. I know it wasn't easy, but we did it. So, look, instead of cracking another joke or making some self-deprecating crack about how my jacket fits, I'm just going to leave you with this. One of our photographers, Kurt Austin, noticed, like a lot of us have noticed, signs going up at businesses across the city, and a lot of them were closed signs. Some were will be back signs. But a lot of them have a different kind of message, and that's the message that we want to leave you with going into this weekend. So, good night, everyone. Stay safe and keep looking out for each other.
This disease has truly transformed our way of life.
It's a little spooky seeing it this quiet.
It is so vacant. It just seems so strange. There's not the hustle and bustle like usual.
We need to spread the word about coronavirus and its impacts.
You know, this feels like the sign of the times.
Businesses are closing.
It's heart-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. It's emotionally trying. It's beyond anything I thought imaginable at this point as a business owner. My name is Jackie Sappington, and I'm one of the owners of Harlow Cafe and Juice Bar.
I feel like I wake up and say I'm ready to be done with this dream, this nightmare, and it's not over. It's just beginning. My name is Adam Sappington. I'm co-owner of Harlow with my wife, Jackie.
When you think, what's the worst case scenario? We're in it right now.
There's been tears today just because we are in our 82nd year of family business, always here in Portland. My name is Laura Gifford Kerr, and I'm a fourth generation florist here at Gifford's Flowers. People were definitely out and about and supporting and calling. We did social distancing. We shut the store down. You could just walk in. But as of now, we are going to close down for a couple weeks and kind of just try to help flatten the curve.
It's really hard on the folks, but really we don't have much choice.
I'm optimistic. This won't last too long. It'll blow over. I think there's a lot of positive. There's a lot of positive that's coming out of it. People helping one another.
In this crisis, I'm as positive as I can be because the negative will only make things much worse, so I have to look at the bright side of everything. We could do to-go, so we're doing it. We're doing it for the public, and we're doing it for our employees so we can make sure we open back up.
Trials and tribulations that we'll all go through. I don't know if this is a sign of the times. I think it's a sign of mankind.
Be kind and give flowers.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good signs around it.
I do feel nice seeing what people are trying to do.
Perhaps trying to pull us back together and make sure we work together and not be so divided.
Keep your head up. It won't last forever.